You are the answer. It's you and your patients. And it's absolutely critical. If we're going to continue to have the ability to see our patients and treat them according to the training that you have, no matter what your specialty is, if you're going to be able to make decisions in conjunction with your patients, then it's absolutely critical that you not only belong to an organization like AAPS, which I've been a member off and on for many, many years, but we've got, as physicians, have to get involved in the political process. If you ever wondered why lawyers are so successful in what they do and how they get public policy made, well, it's because they understand the political importance of being engaged in the process. Now, Dr. Orient and the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons have been promoting market-based practices in public policy for years. But the thing is, physicians have just not been engaged. And it's critical. In fact, I just am thrilled to see groups come to Washington of physicians wearing their scrubs, wearing their white coats, walking around the halls of the offices in Congress, talking about this issue. But as Dr. Paul said, it's more than just health care. In floor speech after floor speech, I describe what's going on in Washington as a steamroller of socialism being driven by Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid. It's being fueled by Barack Obama. And the only way we're going to put speed bumps before this steamroller socialism and hopefully stop signs is for the American public to get engaged. And it's up to you and I to be engaged. It took me 18 years from the first time I felt called to run for Congress to get there. I won a special election in 2007. I started the process in 1989. When I ran the first time for Congress, one of my medical school colleagues from one of the major cities in the state of Georgia had a meet and greet with doctors in that community. There was a neurosurgeon who was there, and at this meet and greet, he said, "Dr. Brown, we need to have more doctors in Congress. It's absolutely critical that people who understand what we face as physicians need to be there in the policy-making process. Please come to my office. I want to help you." So I went to see him. We had an idle chit-chat. He loves to play golf, and we talked about golf initially. And he was telling me about his Saturday golf games where he plays and bets on his round. He plays, if you're a golfer, you know what a Nassau is, but those who don't understand, when you bet on a golf game and playing a Nassau, you bet on the first nine, you bet on the second nine, a second bet, and then you bet a third bet on the 18-hole score. And you can have what's called a fresh, where you say, okay, I've lost that bet, and let's fresh it and make another one. And he was telling me during the discussion that he plays $25 Nassau's, which means he's betting $25 for each one of those. And then he goes into more about, we need to have more doctors in Congress, and I want to help you. He gave me a check for $25. But the thing is, this is typical. It has been typical. Now I'm seeing a difference today. But doctors have not been engaged in the political process, and lawyers are. The CPAs are. The business community is. But we in medicine haven't been. We've been too busy trying to take care of patients, and I understand that. But this steamroll of socialism is going to roll over you and your patients if we don't get engaged. The Association of American Physicians and Surgeons has a PAC, Political Action Committee. PACs are extremely important. I was very much engaged in trying to get the Georgia Academy of Family Physicians to establish a state PAC. Because if we as physicians don't get engaged and support candidates who have our ear and our best interest and our patients' best interest in mind, then we're going to have Obamacare. And I want to remind you of something that you may have heard, but former U.S. Senator Everett Dirksen one time said, when he feels the heat, he sees the light. What that means is that when people contact him through calling his office, emailing him, fax, well, they didn't have email and faxes back then, but then it was letters or phone calls or visits, but now we have emails and faxes. When people would contact him, if he was going in one direction, and the vast majority of people that contacted him said, Buster, you're heading in the wrong direction. Because most members of Congress want to be reelected, they start paying attention. And the way we're going to stop Obamacare is we've got to put the heat on the Democrats particularly. Right now, I think very probably every single Republican in the U.S. House of Representatives will vote against H.R. 3200. As you know, the Democrats have a vast majority in both the House and the Senate. They can pass anything that they can corral all their folks together to support. And then with Barack Obama, obviously that's going to be national policy. But the Democrats are having problems because the progressives, which is the Marxist group of the Democratic Party, are absolutely adamant that they have a single-payer system, and they see the way to get to a single-payer, government bureaucratic-run healthcare system is through a public option. They're very frank about it. Barney Frank, just before our August break, in a little interview on the street, actually, said that that's exactly what he sees. And that's what the president has said. He wants a single-payer system. The Speaker of the House, virtually all the leadership of the Democratic Party has said that. And they see the public option as the mechanism to go from a private insurance system to one system, one insurance company, and that's the federal government. On the other hand, they have the Blue Dog Democrats who are saying, we don't want a public option. We want to have pay-fors for everything, and we don't see a way to pay for going to this big socialized medicine system. Well, our colleague from Georgia, Nathan Deal, is the ranking member of the Health Subcommittee of Energy and Commerce. Energy and Commerce is the major policy committee in the U.S. House that deals with health care issues. Ways and Means, the tax writing committee, of course, deals with it from the tax side. But Nathan Deal, my colleague from Georgia, is the ranking member, which means the #1 Republican on that health subcommittee. As they were marking up H.R. 3200, after they'd been spending 2 or 3 days, going late into the night working on this bill. A markup is where you amend the bill. He came to the floor and he says, you know how long it takes to teach a blue dog to roll over? About a week. About a week. And they're rolling over. Mike Ross, the head of the health subcommittee of the Blue Dogs, who's on Energy and Commerce, was doing all this blustery talk about how they were going to prevent a single-payer option, public option, and this, that, and the other. He got crumbs. And then they rolled over. But if we can put enough heat, particularly on those Blue Dog Democrats, and say, Buster, Obamacare, H.R. 3200, is heading in the wrong direction. It's going to destroy the quality of care. And if you vote for it, we're going to find somebody to run against you and we're going to unelect you. Then people start feeling the heat. And what I encourage you to do is what another one of my colleagues, a freshman OBGYN actually from Tennessee, is Dr. Phil Rowe. He was part of a huge practice in the northeastern corner of Tennessee. They sent out a letter from Dr. Rowe to all their patients. To all their patients in their database. Dr. Rowe explained in that letter why Obamacare is so bad. And I encourage you to contact your patients and contact everybody within your sphere of influence and get them engaged in this process. I want to remind you about how Amway works. If every person in this room would just get 10 people to contact their Democratic Congress member, Democratic U.S. senators, and say no to Obamacare, or else we're going to throw you out of office, and get those same 10 people to contact 10 of their friends to do the same thing, you go down 3 levels, you have over 1,000 people contacting members of Congress saying no to Obamacare. So what I encourage each of y'all to do is get engaged in this process. We've got to build a grass fire of grassroots support all over this country, particularly in Democratic congressmen's districts and in those states where Democrats are in the U.S. Senate.